Hey metalheads, it's Doro Pesch and this is Talking About Rock, and I wish you a great time and stay metal.
All right, today's guest is a German heavy metal singer and the former frontwoman of the heavy metal band Warlock. Following the band's 1987 Triumph and Agony album and the band's breakthrough show at the Monsters of Rock Festival in Castle Donington, Doro struck out on her own. Here to chat with us about her latest release, Warriors of the Sea, let's welcome Doro Pesch. Doro, how are you?
Very good. Hey, great to be on your show. And yeah, everything is good. I just came back from Florida. We were celebrating this new release and it was awesome. It was in the club of Nico McBrain, the drummer of Iron Maiden. And we did like the christening of this album. I see it on your show and that was awesome. So I just came back and now we're getting ready, for another tour. And, soon starting rehearsal and yeah.
Excellent. So I was reading the idea for the latest album here was kind of born out of two sold out shows. You had the Metal Queen Metal Cruises that you performed on. And so that's how this kind of came about, this album, right?
That's right. Yeah, I always wanted to do my own cruise. We did many cruises. The first one was 70,000 tons of metal. And then many times I did the Monsters of Rock cruise and the Full Metal cruise in Germany, the Megadeth cruise. Yeah, and I want to do my own cruise as well. And we started to look into it. And then we found a great ship and it was in Germany. And then we had this event, Metal Queen Metal Cruise. And the fans loved it. Immediately it was sold out. So we did two, and then I thought, man, I need to have a song for that. And I wrote together with my bass player, we wrote Warriors of the Sea, and we played it there live for the first time, and people loved it. And then we played it the second time. We did a really nice video. I don't know if you guys have seen the video. It's pretty cool. And and then I played it in all these summer festivals, on all the concerts, and it was like a fan favorite. And then I thought, man, I want to do like a little special single, maybe a picture disc. I'm still a vinyl lover. I love vinyl records and I'm a big collector. Yeah, and then somebody said, how about you do a 12-inch? Maybe you have 2, 3, 4 songs. And I said, man, I have about 10 songs which would fit like the Warrior theme and the cruise. And so that's the reason why this Warriors of the Sea came about. And it's an album. It has like special rare tracks and the B-side is all live from our last tour. And the special thing is it's a liquid-filled vinyl and it's awesome. I never did it before, but it's like this one. I know this one I can show you. That is the picture. That looks pretty nice as well, and has the ship on it. But the real thing is like the liquid. Where is it? There it is, and it's filled with blue curacao. That was my idea. I want to have it blue, and that's the one. That's the one. And for diehard fans and vinyl collectors, that's pretty different. And
I really dig that. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, definitely love that. Definitely. And you sound great on this new album, as always. You know what I mean? I spoke to one of your former guitar players. I had Tommy Bolin on the show last week.
Yes.
And
he's high energy,
he's very high energy, yeah. And he said, if Dora's singing on something, it's going to be a hit. She could sing the phone book, is what he said to me on the show.
Oh, that's so sweet. Tommy is the best, and I've never seen a person and a guitar player with more energy and always going full force, going full power. And we did this great Warlock album, Triumph and Agony, together. So all the powerful guitar things, that's like his licks, and it was great. Tommy is a great guy, and I wish
he was definitely a riot on the show. And so after the success, I want to ask you a little bit about Triumph and Agony. So after the success of Triumph and Agony, You originally wanted to continue Warlock, but there was a
Yeah.
dispute with the band's management in order to continue with that name. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went?
Yes, actually, I think many bands or many musicians, they know that game. Like, you start to trust people, you're so happy that people are taking care of you, or that's what you want to believe. And we had my first manager, he was actually kind of a friend of ours. And I always wanted to go to America. Always, always. So we had this European manager, and then I had 3 days for a promotion tour in New York. That was on our third album, True as Steel. And I was in New York, and I totally fell in love with America, and especially New York. It was so awesome. So, I told everybody, I want to stay. And everybody said, man, you're crazy. And I said, yes, but I want to stay. So I stayed. And then we did this incredible album, Triumph and Agony, with all our hits on it, like Oh We Are and Für Immer and I Rule the Ruins, which I still love to play. I still play all these great songs. So we recorded this album in New York. And Cozy Powell, he was playing drums on a couple of songs, the legendary drummer, and it was really, really awesome. So we then went on tour in Europe with Ronnie James Dio, and that was so cool. And in America, we got the Megadeth tour, and it was all going so well. Like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it just exploded for you guys, big time, right?
Totally. And then, luckily, like MTV liked our Oh We Are video, so it was on heavy rotation. You can't beat that. Everybody, knew Oh We Are, and it was awesome. So on tour with Ronnie James Dio in Europe, my American manager, he told me, his name was Alex Grove. He unfortunately died. He's not anymore with us. But he said, Doro, I got to talk to you. And I was like, I just did a great show. It was all cool, And I think it was in France. And then, I said, what is it? Everything is going so well. He said, well, your European manager left. And I said, what do you mean he left? He said, he split. He left. And back then, it was in the 80s. You didn't have any cell phones, no computers. It was hard to track somebody down.
Right.
So he went to Turkey, and, you could not track down anybody in Turkey back then. So that was pretty strange and pretty bad. We never talked about it. I was heartbroken because I really liked him. And, and especially when you feel like, man, there's big success in store, and, it was all going up. I was like, I felt really bad about it. But the worst part was yet to come. He took all the money, and he wanted to take the name Warlock because he was doing the merchandising. And I think our merchandising was really doing really well. I heard one time we were like the top 3, like it was Metallica, Maiden, and Warlock. So you can imagine it was a lot of money. So he wanted to keep the name Warlock. And, and I thought, man, he has nothing to do with the name. He was with the band years later. And then we went to court, and, we were all teenager. I was like pretty, I was actually screaming in the courtroom, and I said, no, he's a thief. It's our name. And then they removed me, and I couldn't believe it. And they actually, we didn't win. And, and the manager, he could keep the name for a little while. And to make a long story short, it took me 20 years to get the rights to the name back. So we were recording actually another album. It was the follow-up of the Triumph and Agony album. And, it was going really well. And and then, the record company and the other manager said, well, you have to call it, different. It can't be Warlock because,
because he owns the name, right? He owns the rights to the name. Yeah.
And I said, no, we will call it Warlock. I don't care. I don't care. But then it got so difficult, and I said, well, you can't. We get in so much legal stuff. You can't. We have to fight to get the name back. And then I thought, okay, let's fight. Maybe 2 years later we can name the next album Warlock again. But it took 20 years. And then people said, well, we are not interested in calling it another band name because we supported you guys, let's call it Doro. And I said, well, I don't think about it's not a good idea. I wanted Warlock. And I said, well, just do this one album, Doro, and then when everything is sorted out, we call it Warlock again. So the second album, Force Majeure, which just went gold, by the way. I got a gold record for it years later. And yeah, and then there was the first Doro record. At first we had a Doro, plus Warlock, but then we had to get rid of that altogether because of, getting into trouble. So yeah, that was the first Doro record. And then, I had to do one after the other records, and it took 20 years that I could, have my name Warlock back. So
well, you definitely persevered on that. Like you said, you went through the battle, you got the name back. I think it was in about 2011 you regained the rights back to that. So that's so amazing. Definitely. Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about some other things during your career. So in the late 80s, you contacted Gene Simmons to start kind of a collaboration with him. And he produced the album with the help of Tommy Thayer on that originally. Yeah. So that had to be... Tell us a little bit about that meeting with Gene. So he is like the merchandising man. He understands what to do and how to put stuff together, right?
Yes, that's right. But, I'm totally different. I always come from the heart. I only do what I feel. I don't only, want to make the fans happy. I don't care about business stuff and all. And, and so Gene always said, man, Doro, you got to learn, but I always said, man, Gene, I do what I feel, So we did this record. I must say he was an awesome producer, and I was a big Kiss fan growing up. So for me, it was unbelievable always going into the studio and seeing the demon there. And he was so nice. He was super nice. He was super caring. And we started doing work on the album in New York. And he always came to my apartment. I was living in the Village in New York. And, he was always in my apartment. And we were working and talking. And it was so great. And then we went to LA and we recorded this album in LA in the Fortress studio where Kiss recorded the Hot in the Shade album. And it was a cool engineer. Pat Reagan was his name. And Tommy Thayer, he was playing all the solos. He was the co-producer. He used to be in the band Black and Blue. And, and he was a great friend of Gene. And he said, hey, let's, maybe you guys have a good chemistry. And Tommy came, into the room, and we immediately, we could feel, we were becoming best of friends. And then we did this album, and it was actually a dream come true. For a big Kiss fan, you guys have no idea. It means the world, it was great. But Gene was very, very caring, very intelligent. And when I first met him, it was actually some promoter called me, and the guy said, hey, you played the Monsters of Rock festival, right? And I said, yes, that was one of the biggest festivals in 86. Great lineup: Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, Motorhead in England, Warlock. And, I said, yeah, it was the best festival back then. And they said, well, we want to have Kiss on our lineup. Would you like to introduce Kiss? And I said, oh my God, it would be such an honor.
Like that's a question, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, yeah, I'm a big Kiss fan. I would love it. So I flew over from LA actually to Germany, and that was the first time that I met Kiss and Gene Simmons, and I introduced the band, and it was a fantastic festival. It was awesome. So I immediately thought, man, Gene Simmons, I would love to do something together with Kiss, maybe a song or something. And I told my manager about it. And I was living in New York, in Manhattan, and I told my manager, Alex, I said, do you think it's possible to get connection? And he said, hey, Doro, drop it, that's like a stupid idea because, they have no time for that, and, it's Kiss. And, so, and I thought, okay, I just want to try, So I was not thinking about it anymore, and I thought, yeah, it's a stupid idea. So a couple of weeks later, my phone rang very early in the morning. I always work at night, so it was very unusual that 10 o'clock the phone rang, and it was my manager on the phone. He said, Doro, meet me at the Parker Meridian Hotel. That's like 57th Street or 54th Street. And I said, when? He said, now. And I said, really? Now? I said, I'm still sleeping. I didn't take a shower, nothing. And he said, come right away. There's a surprise for you. And I thought it's maybe like some friends from Germany or some fans or, somebody,
Right.
because I, from Germany. Obviously, my accent, you guys can hear. Yeah, so I thought, okay, some friends from Germany. So I hopped in a taxi. I didn't take a shower, didn't put on my makeup and stuff. So I was meeting my manager in front of the hotel. And I said, so Alex, who is it? He said, well, it's a big surprise. And I said, oh, please tell me who is it? He said, Gene Simmons. I said, what? You must be kidding. You didn't tell me it's Gene Simmons sitting there waiting for me. So I had to go around the block 3 times, 3 times. And they're like big blocks, it took a long time. And then Alex said, hey, Doro, you can't let Gene wait. You gotta go in now. So I went into the hotel and Gene Simmons was sitting in the lobby. He was super nice. And then he said, so I heard you want to do something together. And he said, well, you know what? We could try. If it doesn't work out, nobody knows about it. So, we have nothing to lose. Let's do it. And then he said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, a sound like this and like that. And he wrote everything down. He had a little book and he wrote everything down. And it was the first time that I felt heard. Like I never thought that, somebody would take the time to write down what I would say about the new album. So I was like, really like, wow, man, Jensen writes down my ideas for the next album. That was unbelievable. He took it very serious and he said, yeah, let's try it. So yeah, then we tried and then this album came out and it came out in 1990. And this first single, it was called Unholy Love. It's a beautiful video that actually became another nice hit. And and it was awesome. And I was in heaven, I tell you, yeah.
Yeah, just an amazing meeting. Very, very cool. Well, you've also toured with, like you were saying earlier, another late metal icon, Ronnie James Dio. You did shows with him. Can you share a little bit about with our listeners here about some of those shows, some of your interactions maybe with Ronnie over the years?
Yes. Oh, yes. I'd love to. Yeah, actually, the first time I met Ronnie James Dio, it was on our tour in Europe. That was actually, that was in 1987. And it was a whole European tour, and that was really great. It was a great lineup as well. Jimmy Bain, he was the bass player who unfortunately is not anymore with us. He always came to our tour bus and we became great friends. And so over the years, we always had a cool friendship. And then, like you guys know, when grunge made it big, that was pretty difficult for all these normal rock and metal bands.
Yeah, that kind of put the brakes on all the hard rock, heavy metal, hairstyle, all that stuff went to the side. Yeah.
Yes, totally. And many, many years I did, I think, really great records. But when I delivered the records to the record company, when it was all done, then they said, okay, so, you think you have a couple of hits and singles and what could be the next video? And I said, I think this song is great, this and this. And I said, well, but it is grunge, right? And I said, no, it's not grunge at all. I don't feel grunge at all. And I said, well, it has to sound like grunge, otherwise we can't release it. So I said, I can't believe it. So many records didn't even get a release in America. And that was actually oh man, that was heartbreaking, I tell you. But then I did I want to do another record. I did some demos. That was in 1999. And I sent it, to my fan club guy in America. His name was Tony Canella. And he got the demos. He said, Doro, it's so awesome. I love it. And he said, can I do something for you? And I said, well, Tony, just do whatever it takes. And he said, can I send the demos around? And I said, yes. And he said, do I get permission? And I said, you have permission in your heart, do whatever feels good. You're a diehard fan. I trust you with my life. I always did trust the fans. And so Tony was like doing, what he thought would be good. And so he was sending out these little demo tapes. And within 2 weeks, we had 4 record deals on the table. And the first record company I went to, it was Koch Records in New York. And it was a very, very nice A&R guy. And he said, Doro, I love the songs. I love it. Let's do a deal. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. Yes. And so grunge was a little bit on the way out. So I did this album, Calling the Wild. And at the same time, Dio was doing his album Magica. And so this guy from the record company called me, said, Doro, would you like to go to the release party of Ronnie James Dio's new album? And I said, oh, I would love to. So I went to the release party in New York and I saw Ronnie and then, I told him that the record is awesome. And, I'm so happy to see him. And he said, Doro, I always want to tell you, I love your version of Egypt, the Chains Are On. I did a cover version of Egypt, the Chains Are On, and I think it came out really nice. And he said, I love it. I always play it on the radio and stuff. And I said, really? So we were talking and he gave me a hug and we had a great time. It was a great party. So a couple of weeks later, I did some interviews for my new album, Calling the Wild. And the lady said, do you have any touring plans and stuff? And I said, well, we want to do either a club tour or support somebody. And she said, what would be your dream band to support? And I immediately said, Ronnie James Dio. And she said, you know what? That is so unbelievable because Ronnie is calling me up in 2 hours and we have another interview for his new album, Magica. And I said, really? And she said, shall I ask him? And I said, okay. I said, why not? I wouldn't, I didn't dare to ask. And she said, you know what? I asked him. So he told Ronnie about it. And she said, well, Doro has a new album coming out. And how about you guys go on tour together? And Ronnie said, yes. So a couple of months later, we went on tour together in America. It was a long tour. Yngwie Malmsteen was there as well. And we were the best friends. We went out to eat day and night talking. Ronnie always loved Indian food, so we always tried to get some Indian places, and when we had a day off, then we talked till 6:00 in the morning. It was so cool. And then we started in San Francisco, the tour, and we ended in Florida. And actually the last 3 concerts. And we got along so great. And then I was always watching every concert, on the side of the stage with the guys in my band. And then one time, Ronnie left the stage. And I said, oh, okay, that's unusual. And the guys in my band, they were patting me on the back. And I said, you're on. And I said, no. And then Ronnie came back with 2 microphones. And then he came over to me and he handed me the second microphone. He said, okay, Doro, let's do the encores together. And I said, Ronnie, I don't really know the lyrics exactly. He said, doesn't matter. And then we sang arm in arm together with the fans. We sang all the encores, all the big hits. And yeah, the last 3 gigs in Florida. And it was so cool. And unfortunately, nobody recorded it because people didn't have a cell phone with the camera. I got some photos, but I didn't get any videos. Maybe somebody from your listeners has some video footage of it. But we had such a great time. So, and Ronnie was the sweetest. He was so sweet. And he had such a great sense of humor too. We were sometimes rolling on the floor, laughing. He was super funny. And we became great friends.
I've always heard that he was very, very, very kind to, yes. And especially to his fans. He always seemed to take the time with them when a lot of other artists kind of don't, and they don't realize that. He seemed to always take that time and be a very personable type of person. Yeah. And I heard he didn't like Indian food at first, but then when he started eating it, that was it.
That's right. And it was a fantastic tour. And he always came to our tour bus and hanging out. And it was fantastic. And we had the best time. And actually, we had plans to do another tour together, and then it didn't come to that anymore. So it would have been a dream of mine to do another duet with Ronnie James Dio on a record, but so maybe in another lifetime. And
Right. Yeah. Such an amazing rock icon he was. Definitely. Definitely. And
Yes.
he was always a very, very sharp dresser. He always had his stage and his outfits just so. And your stage clothes, what I was reading, are handmade.
Yes.
Those are handmade for you. I didn't realize that at first.
Yes, they're handmade, and actually, that's probably 25 years ago. I started to not use real leather anymore, and because of the animals, I wasn't, I didn't think about it before, but yeah, when I heard that it's so cruel, like, how they produce the leather things and stuff, and I thought, oh man, I love animals, and I don't want to have anybody suffer for my little leather jacket. So I started to check into that, and everything I always wear is all like artificial leather, fake leather. The gloves as well, and some fans, they make the best stage clothes. So some of the diehard fans, this one is actually from Australia. They're like these leather gloves, but they are not real leather. And her name is the band's name is Matterhorn, actually an Australian band, but the band's name is Matterhorn. And yeah, and she's doing my the jackets, everything. And I have a German fan. Her name is Julia, and she's doing pants and stuff. And sometimes I'm doing my own stuff as well, but it's all like it's not real leather. And yeah, and I became a vegan. I know many people don't understand that, but I think it's like, because I love animals. It's I started to do that about 9-10 years ago, and yeah. So,
Amazing, amazing. Well, you've
I'm
also got a
always
lot of
healthy.
achievements going on through time. So in 2022, you received the Lifetime Achievement Award, having previously received an Echo. Then you had the Metal Goddess Legend Award in Las Vegas, the
Yes.
Legend Award in England and Germany, and you recently were I was seeing online, part of a charity marathon in Germany as well, raising euros for children out there.
Yes, that was the reason why I came back from Florida. I have a place in Florida now, and yeah, that was a good thing. And man, they were raising, like, I think 23 million, and just it was this one TV show, and people can call up, and then you're on the phone and you talk to people, and
And they were
it's
talking to you. I saw you on the phone there.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes, but it was so funny because people called up. Sometimes people said, "Man, I'm so lonely. I just want to talk to somebody." And then I said, "Well, we're here at this TV show. Do you want to donate something? It's for the kids, and I promise it's all going to the kids." And then they said, "Oh, sure." But there were so many lonely people, like, calling up the hotline, and there was actually, it was there was, but it was all for the kids, like, for worldwide. And I always do charity, whatever I can do, like I love music, I love the fans, I love animals, and whenever I have the feeling I can make people happy, or I can do something good, then I'm always the first in line to do it.
Yeah, that just looked like just an amazing event. You got so much stuff going on. And it was also seeing that you're now working with Entertainment Services of New York. So I have to ask you how our buddy Bill DiPaolo is treating you over there.
Oh, he's super. He's super. We did some festivals together. And yeah, and actually, he was planning this great event when we were doing this album christening at Nico McBrain's club. And and everything was sorted out. He had big posters, everything. It was great. And then he couldn't fly in, and I did it with a friend of his. But Bill is awesome. But it was because of the shutdown, so he was waiting 10 hours at the airport, but he couldn't fly into Florida. But he was like, he was trying everything on the phone, and he had a great friend, taking care of us. He was like always like doing the whiskey. He was working at the whiskey in LA and doing the Monsters of Rock cruise. So he was kind of like, he knew what to do. So we did it. But Bill is awesome, and he's an awesome tour manager, and he takes care of me, he takes care of us in many, many ways. And he's a great guy and always full of energy, has great ideas. I love that. And and I hope we will work many more years together, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah,
And I'm
definitely. Bill's
with
such a
many
great
more
guy.
records.
You know, I know you're so busy, and we just want to say your current Winter Magic Tour kicks off in Berlin on December 15th, I believe, correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right. We're coming to the States. Our first festival is Hell's Heroes in Houston, Texas. It's in March, I think 19th of March. And I will play a whole Warlock set. So only the Warlock, the best of Warlock songs and the Triumph and Agony. So this will be probably a lot of fun. And I know there are a lot of diehard Warlock fans there. So that's the first festival next year. And then we take it from there, and many, many more festivals, many more gigs, and we want to do many more events, just like where maybe you do a little acoustic session and signing and having dinner with the fans. So special, special parties, and
Yeah,
all
that
that
looks
fun.
amazing. Definitely, definitely. So, one last thing I wanted to ask here for you. What would you say to any young women starting out in music? Do you have any advice for them or words of wisdom or something maybe they should think about when they start this journey? You've been on this journey quite a while now.
Yes, actually, I can tell you, I could definitely learn from the best. So I would say, always follow your heart. I definitely can tell you that's the best thing to do. Don't let the bastards get you down, because everybody always wants to tell you what to do, and how to sound like. But follow your heart, follow your soul, go your gut feeling. That's always right. I think that's the most intelligent thing, your gut, your feel, your soul, your heart. And then do it full force, do it every day if you can. And always know it's hard. It always goes up and down. It never goes straight up. It always goes up and down. But hang in there, believe in yourself if nobody else believes in you, and just do it, do what you love. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And find your niche. Like everybody has like a personal individual thing. So find out what it is, what people love about you, or about your style or songwriting or your voice. And then go for it. And know it's a hard job, but it's the best job in the whole world. It's so cool, like when you know that the fans are digging your stuff. That's that's motivation for the next 100 years. So I would just say, go for it, follow your heart, and try to connect with good people. But what I told you before with the management and stuff, I would say, before you sign a contract, always take advice from a good lawyer. Let other people check it out, because us as musicians, we always want to rock and go on stage and write songs and go in the studio and go to an expert who knows, who studied law, before you sign something, that you don't sign your life away. We did that many times, and we had to pay for it, because sometimes when you sign a contract, and when you think later, oh man, what did I sign? Oh no way. So I would say, legal advice, that can never hurt. It's maybe a little bit expensive, but it's totally worth it. So
Yeah, definitely good advice. Thank you. All right, so the new album from Doro, Warriors of the Sea, is out now. You can catch Doro on her new Winter Magic Tour with all the dates listed at doromusic.de. All right. So that wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thank you to my guest today, Doro Pesch. And to our listeners out there, we hoping you're doing your part by keeping the torch alive and supporting live music wherever you are. Doro, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All the best to everybody. Stay metal, keep on rocking. I love you with all my heart, and I'll see you soon on tour or on any of these festivals.